Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
The idea that somehow they pose a more significant threat than all the tourists who pour into the United States every single day just doesn't jive with reality.
That's Barry from Honolulu, flying back from a junket somewhere in Asia. I think that's where he was. God knows what he was doing there. And he says that the Syrian refugees pose no more of a threat than the average tourist, and laughs at stupid Americans who believe that they do. Now, a poll just came out. 60% say the U.S. is at war with Islamic terrorism. He doesn't know it, or he denies it. Hillary doesn't know it or denies it. John Kerry doesn't know it or denies it. Spokesmouths for the government don't know it or deny it. I guess the American people are stupid. The majority say that we're at war with radical Islam. Now, they look around, they see every day another bomb somewhere. Today, another one. Another hotel blown up. More people dragged out with blood running off their bodies. But, you know, we have to believe our leaders because they are smarter than we are. You have to understand that Barry from Honolulu is much smarter than you are. He's much smarter. He knows we're not at war with radical Islam, and he knows that it's not Islamic terrorism. These are just rogue individuals. They're lacking jobs and opportunities, and they're just striking out of desperation. They're just striking out because they need jobs, job training. That's the best he can come up with. Russia knows what it is. France knows what it is. Jordan knows what it is. Egypt knows what it is. India certainly knows what radical Islam is. But Barry from Hawaii doesn't know what it is. Now, you see, there's a dance of death in the West, and now actual death around the world, courtesy of the Islamo-fascists. Meanwhile, the Caesar in the White House entertains himself with 1,000 sycophants, partying on behind closed doors, as if the Islamo-fascist hand will not touch him. He thinks he's protected from this new plague, the Black Death of radical Islam. You see, we're facing something the West hasn't had to deal with since the wars of religion in the 16th and 17th centuries. When those religious wars ended in one place, they began in another. They lasted for over 100 years. The same thing is happening right now. The radical Muslims are on the warpath, and they are against everyone else. They are against Muslims who are not as fanatical. They are against the members of all other religions. They think they're going to take us back to some pristine religious period in human history that never actually occurred. This is a barbaric revolution, and we have a man in the White House who denies its existence. But whether he chooses to acknowledge it or not, it's going to continue until someone puts a stop to it. Why would any government bring in unvetted Muslim immigrants at a time like this? It would seem that only an insane prince would do this to this nation. But Obama is not insane. He's stoned. He's stoned on the orthodoxy of the progressive left. Obama and his supporters are drunk on their ideology. They think they're going to create a progressive utopia by continuing their attack on all Western values. Ladies and gentlemen of the Savage Nation, this is precisely how great civilizations of the past declined and eventually fell. They rejected the values that made them great and degenerated into narcissism and selfishness. They kept on partying until they were too weak to defend themselves. Then the unthinkable happened. They fell. That's the opening page to Government Zero. And what gives me chills is that the third paragraph of the first page came out before Paris and before Mali. And the sentence read, "Why would any government bring in unvetted Muslim immigrants at a time like this?" The dance of death continues. The dance of death continues, excerpted from my new book, Government Zero. They're Nazis in headscarves. This is a barbaric revolution. I can ask you a question. Do you agree with the majority of Americans who believe that the U.S. is at war with Islamic terrorism, despite what pie-face Hillary says, despite what Barry the Deranged says? Incidentally, majorities from both major parties said the U.S. is engaged in a conflict with radical Islam. It included 56% of Democrats, 70% of Republicans, 54% of independents. Did you know that? Did you know that most Americans understand what's going on? Did you understand finally that people get it, but that the leadership either doesn't get it or is playing for the other side or is in another universe altogether? Nobody knows how they can stay in office. But what can I say to you? This is a very dangerous time that we're living in. It's very difficult to not be agitated by it. It's very difficult, if you are conscious, to continue your life as you continued it as you ran it before Paris, when every day bombs are going off somewhere in the world, and every day the bombs are being detonated by radical Muslims, against Christians, against Buddhists, against Hindus, against agnostics, against Jews, against Hindus, wherever you turn. This is a repeat of history. Those of you who know your history are recognizing that we are repeating our history. This is the history of how in only 50 years the radical Muslims of ancient times that arose soon after Muhammad appeared on the planet took over a good portion of the world. They did so in exactly the same way. Not with bombs, but with the sword. Not with the message of Jesus, which is of love, but of hate. Not with the message of peace, but of war. If you don't know your history, learn your history, because I'm going to give it to you right now on the Savage Nation. That history is very interesting, and it's well documented. And it's the growth of the Muslim power in only 25 years. And if you look at the map, you'll see that they swept out of the Middle East, where it originated, covered all of Arabia, then Persia, then Egypt, and then on into other areas. They conquered Persia. They conquered Western Turkestan. They conquered the Chinese. They conquered Egypt. And who was doing the conquering? The very same types that are doing it now. They were filled with fanatical belief in the sufficiency of a single book, the Quran. They burned the book copying industry at the Alexandria Library to the ground. They burned books to the ground, liberals. They burned every book on earth except one book. And then the tide of Muslim conquest poured along the north coast of Africa to the Straits of Gibraltar and Spain. Spain was invaded in 710. The Pyrenees Mountains were reached in 720. In 732, the fanatical Arabs advanced into the center of France, but then something happened. It was stopped for good at the Battle of Poitiers and thrust back as far as the Pyrenees again. And I can stop right there. It was only through war that they were stopped. And what happened after that is very interesting. Very interesting what happened after that. The intolerant self-sufficiency of the early days of faith, which made the Quran seem the only possible book, was dropped. Did you know that the Arab Muslims who are doing this around the globe are not even 9th century in their thinking, but they're 7th century in their thinking? They do not even reflect the 9th century view of Muslims. They reflect the 7th century view of Muslims. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? If you don't understand it, it's because you're a drug addict. You've been drugged in your schools. You've been drugged by your doctors. You've been drugged by virtually everything you've seen on television and everything produced by the wonderful geniuses in Hollywood. I now want to talk about something else that's somewhat related. I was trying to understand why men like George Soros, who I consider one of the most evil geniuses in the history of the world, why he would fund the flood of refugees into Europe, why he would flood Syrian refugees into America, why he and his cohorts would spend hundreds of millions of dollars with their, quote, Open Borders Institute. What are they trying to do, I ask? Why would a Jew like George Soros, who allegedly fled the Nazis, why would he be doing this? Why would he want Muslim refugees in America? And I was racking my brain. It didn't make sense to me. I'd say surely a billionaire like him would want his children and his money protected. What is he doing? And then it occurred to me that and maybe this idea is crazy, I said to myself, but I'm going to run it by the radio audience today because I tend to think out loud, come what may. So here's my thought. Why is it that the entire progressive establishment is in favor of running refugees across all borders, mainly Muslims? What are they trying to do? And then it dawned on me. They want you to say all religion is toxic. Once you come to hate radical Islam, they figure out, you'll come to hate your own religion. And then once you come to hate your own religion and say all religion is insane, why then they have what they want. They have statism rather than any other religion. And then they have exactly what they want, which is no religion. And the only religion that will be permitted is the new equivalent of the Soviet Union of the world, the state religion. You see what I'm saying? Did you follow the logic? If you come to detest radical Islam, you'll say it's religion itself that's no good. All religion is equal. Haven't you noticed what they're doing, the girls on MSNBC? All religion is dangerous. Christians are just as dangerous as Muslims. Every religion has terrorists. Haven't you seen that? What do you think that rhetoric is about? That rhetoric is to make you hate all religion, fear all religion, and then eventually outlaw all religion in all Western nations. And then what happens? And then you have statism. Then you have a new Soviet type of system that runs the West. Well, that's the opening to the show. Probably more ideas than you've had all week or all day. Something for you to think about. It's open mic to Mike on the Savage Nation. I invite you to call to the one open line, 1-855-407-282. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUICO. It is the Savage Nation. These are very difficult times for all thinking Americans. If you're a fool, if you're a liberal, if you're a progressive, you can go partying on and continue your dance of death. But those of us who see what's going on know the danger we're in. And then we know who the enemy is because they've defined themselves. They even have a name. Now, there's the reason that Obama keeps referring them to as Daesh. Kerry calls them Daesh. Anything without the word Islam in it, they use. Anything but the word Islam. Sharon, WMAL, we're in danger. What's on your mind?
Yes, no one has explained the relationship between Islam and communism in the way that you so eloquently just did for all of us. And really the genius in this case is Savage, not Soros, and I thank you for that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Let me explain it in one paragraph. Michael Savage has been warning Americans for decades, and now it's here. No borders, no language, no culture. Savage sounds the alarm about how progressives and radical Islamists are each unwittingly working towards similar ends to destroy Western civilization and remake it in their own respective images. These two dark forces are transforming our once free republic into a socialist third world dictatorship ruled by government zero, absolute government and zero representation. Savage cuts through mainstream media propaganda to reveal an all-out attack on our borders, language, and culture by progressive travelers who have hijacked public policy from national defense to immigration to public education. There is no time to lose. The progressive Islamist agenda has advanced into every public space, from the White House to the military to your local public school. If America is to survive, it has to be stopped. Michael Savage has a plan. I've articulated this plan on this program for many years, and yet the lunatics continue to chatter on, as it was said, and the band plays on. They keep playing their same symphonies of multiculturalism, open borders, peace and love, all religions are the same. Islam is a peace-loving religion. It's not related to Muslims. You have no right to look at Muslims. You have no right to investigate mosques. You have no right to restrict immigration. The same thing goes on and on and on. Nothing will change them. You have to ask yourself, when will it change? How will it change? Huh? Robert, WJR, fire away. You're on the Savage Nation.
Hi, Dr. Savage. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I wanted to mention my thoughts that every